It's hard to believe, but the summer season is just upon us. And as we look into the future and see what this summer may hold, we invite a special guest back onto the show. Weather World founder and alum Paul Knight joins us with an outlook of what to expect over the next couple of months. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Good to be back, Rob.
And last summer is still fresh in a lot of folks' minds. Of course, it was very humid and very wet in Pennsylvania. What are you looking at as we go into the next couple of months here?
Well, I could give you my tongue-in-cheek answers. The days will be longer. There'll be more leaves on the trees. A lot more green things are going to be growing. But this is a particularly challenging summer to predict because the signals that we would get that influence seasonal weather are not exactly giving us the same message. So if we actually were to, Rob, if we were to take a look at last summer in terms of rainfall, that would be the months of June, July, and August. And this is for the state of Pennsylvania, so this includes everywhere from Erie to Philadelphia, from Waynesburg all the way up into the Scranton area. And notice that it was indeed the wettest on record. So it was no question that it was soggy, and in fact we really blew out the previous records. Of course, we had a lot of wet summers in the 2000s. And then if we compare with temperatures, because some of you say, well, it was a muggy summer, as you just mentioned, Rob, but indeed it was really not all that hot temperature-wise. This is looking at minimum temperatures using all the available data from stations in Pennsylvania for, once again, the months of June, July, and August. And specifically, it was not the warmest nighttime temperatures, but it was ranked around 4th. And look at this one way back in like early 1900s. So in spite of that we had a very mild nights and also rather wet time, the maximum temperatures, we had very few distinctive heat waves.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're looking into this summer, I guess the question is, are we going to see some of those heat waves that we've had in the past? And is the wetness going to continue? Because it's already been a wet start to the year for many places.
It has. Certainly May has been quite wet, and the four previous months have been wet too. I tend to think that, yeah, the message is that there'll still be some wetness to be had as we get into summer, but not as wet as last summer, I hope. I'm pretty sure, actually. In fact, what we could also do, Rob, is we could take a look at, we'll use State College as kind of a pivot point to give an example of the temperatures from last summer. And this is looking from June 1 on the far left all the way over, so this would be June 1st, all the way over to August 31st. And if the blue lines indicate the high and the low for every day of the month, every day of the summer, I should say, those 91 days. And then if we go around, we see none of them eclipsed a record. This would be a record maximum, and none of them eclipsed a record minimum. So it was all kind of in that middle zone. And in fact, if you were to count the number of days that were above normal and the days below normal, it split even. It was like 46 above, 45 below. So there was really not much of a message from last summer in terms of temperature. However, look at the precipitation, which is the next chart.
Different story.
Oh, very different. In fact, this is the issue that many people remember, is that other than for a few days in the early part of June over here, we were in a surplus. In fact, the surplus just kept building and building, kind of like our national debt, and it was just reaching extraordinary proportions by the time we got to the end of August, and of course that continued into the autumn as well too. So it was a very wet summer without doubt. Now, if we take a look at the factors that we're considering for this year, this is a snapshot of the global sea surface temperatures, departures from normal just from a few days ago, and I boxed in this area in the Central Pacific because we are still in, albeit weak, El Nino conditions. And when an El Nino occurs, these are the usual outcome across U.S. for temperatures on the left and precipitation on the right, looking at the probability or percentage of years that the temperatures are above normal. And notice that there's quite a message of above normal with El Nino in the summertime along the East Coast. And precipitation is abundant all the way from the northern Rockies down to the plains and into the Ohio Valley. Pennsylvania is a little bit more of a mixed signal if El Nino was the only message that we had. But it isn't, unfortunately.
Because makes it a lot more complicated.
It does, because there are other atmospheric indices. There's the Atlantic Ocean, of course, which has been very warm, too. And when the Atlantic is warm, it has a different influence. Now, I did bring along the composite of the two best numerical models, seasonal models that are run right now. And they're also trend line adjusted. So this is like state-of-the-art forecast that just came out within the past few days On the left, once again, is the temperature, expected probability of temperatures above or below normal, blue being below, and on the right would be precipitation, green being above normal. And look how much of the U.S. is being forecast to have temperatures below normal, all the way from the interior west into parts of the interior northeast. Very few places above normal. And look how much of the country, especially west of the Mississippi, will be wet if this is correct. So let me, without further ado, let's summarize it for you. I do think that in spite of those two messages, I'm leaning more toward the classic El Nino, a drier and a bit warmer summer, especially for July and August. Still wetter than average, though, for majority of the state. I think we can't get rid of that signal. But I think, like last summer, it's a limited risk of heat waves, that is 3 days or more 90-degree temperatures, maybe only 2 or 3 events. And unfortunately, probably more severe storms, particularly in June, which is actually our most abundant month for severe storms here in Pennsylvania anyway.
Yeah, the most active month there happening early in the summer. So maybe still some humid weather throughout parts of Pennsylvania, as is typical, but maybe more so than we would normally see this time of year too.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the forecast, looking into the summer, Paul Knight. And that's all the time we have for the outlook right now, but we'll have a recap of your short-range forecast coming up in just a moment.